Drama occurred right here on the campus of Dixie State College, right in the middle of the women's conference. This man, Robert Berchtold, had a confrontation with a BACA member outside the Gardner Center. Berchtold was arrested and charged with simple assault, disorderly conduct, and criminal trespassing. Berchtold currently lives in Logandale, Nevada. I asked Jan how she feels about Berchtold living so close and if that will stop her in sharing her story.
Really, all it's done for me is just said, no, we are not going to let this slide. We are not going to brush this under the carpet and go, oh, please just go live in somebody else's community. Just as long as you're not bothering me, go live someplace else. Go, go down the road. Go down to Logandale and live. We're not going to do that anymore. I have dedicated myself making sure that this doesn't happen to other little girls and little boys. I want to be that voice, and so it was determined early on that no matter what, I was going to be here today, and my family would be here too.
After her presentation, victims shared their own stories with Jan.
That made the whole conference and all of this crazy stuff going on worth it.
Be sure to tune in to KCSG News for more on Jan's incredible story.
Jan Broberg Felt was kidnapped twice by a family friend. She sat down with our Ann Staples to tell us more about her story.
Jan, you are Elizabeth Smart, 25 years later. Tell us your story.
At the age of 10, in the early 1970s, I was 10 years old when this family, Robert Berchtold and his family, moved into our area. After 2.5 years of becoming best friends with this family, this man was like a second father to me. He came to pick me up from my piano lesson, saying that we were going to go horseback riding, going to meet my own father and his son out at a ranch. He gave me a vitamin pill, which I was used to taking because I was allergic to horses. I took the pill, and the next thing I remember was waking up in the back of a moving motorhome. It was in the nighttime. My wrists and my ankles were strapped to the bed, and on the pillow next to me was an ivory intercom-looking box, and a voice was coming out of this box calling me female companion in a high-pitched monotone way. Female companion, it is time for your mission to begin. Well, he had prepared this little girl's mind for 2.5 years by taking us to science fiction movies, bringing over articles on UFO sightings, and immediately, as this 12-year-old girl strapped to that bed, I thought I had been kidnapped by a UFO. We traveled deeper into Mexico, and 5 weeks later the FBI located me and brought me home. Now, because of this extensive brainwashing, I believed that they could see me and were watching me at all times, and if I were to tell about them, about the drugs that he was giving me, or about the sexual abuse, that I would be immediately destroyed, and that members of my family would be destroyed or taken by the aliens as well. Well, after he got out of prison, because I wasn't telling anyone, I didn't tell the authorities, I was to write a note and leave it on my pillow as if I was running away. He came to my bedroom window that night, helped me out the window, and again we went off to perform the mission. As we traveled this time into California, I was placed in a boarding school, and it took the FBI 4 months to locate me the second time. I knew when I saw Elizabeth Smart for the first time on TV that she had been brainwashed by the way she was dressed, and that she was not going to tell what had happened to her because of the extensive brainwashing, which is what happened to me. And I believed that I had to perform this mission, and that aliens were watching me for 4 years of my life before I finally told somebody the real story about them, about the sexual abuse, about the drugs, about him.
And that'll do it for today's Local News Now. We hope you'll join us again. Until then, have a great day. Still to come, she survived abuse and brainwashing by a family friend and wants to help other victims. We'll bring you part 2 of our exclusive interview with Jan Broberg Felt. That's next.
After surviving the traumatic experience that you went through of being drugged, kidnapped, brainwashed, abused, how do you move on in your life? How do you heal to go on?
Well, first of all, I had 12 wonderful childhood years before this event ever happened, and I do believe that that base that my parents gave me, that I had faith, I had friends, I had family, I had neighbors and community support. I had all of those things prior to this experience. That was a huge reason in and of itself. I also have had some good counseling along the way. I have had a lot of encouragement to tell my story and to share it, which getting your stories out is a huge healing that takes place for victims of this kind of abuse. I attended a forum called the Landmark Forum, which made a tremendous difference in my life when I was 30, where I was able to take off some of the effects and the victim coat and put on the armor of advocate, being able to go forward and try to help others in their healing process by telling my story, by my mother writing the book. We collaborated on that. It was a 10-year process, and Mother and I wrote Stolen Innocence, the Jan Broberg story that's available at R&K and Little Professor and at the college bookstore. Doing that experience was hugely cathartic in our healing and tells the story more from my mother's point of view as well as my own. All of those things were so good in the healing process, and I don't think about this every day of my life. I have gone on with a career, a family, other things that are important to me in my life.
Do you have advice for other victims?
Yes. You can live in the 10%, which is that experience that you had, that trauma in your life, and make it your whole life. It can ruin your life, that 10%. Or you can live in the 90%, which is the rest of your life, and use that 10% to help others, to educate others. Use that to learn from. Don't let it run your life. Live in the 90%, which is the rest of your life and what you can do with it, and all of the things that you are in charge of. You don't have to be a victim to that 10% anymore.
And that'll do it for today's Local News Now. Be sure to tune in to KCSG for all your Southern Utah headlines. Until then, thank you for watching. Welcome back. A year ago, Elizabeth Smart was reunited with her family after allegedly being held captive by a self-proclaimed prophet for 9 months. The Smart story hits close to home for Jan Broberg Felt. You've heard Jan's amazing story the past couple of days, and today we bring you our last installment of our exclusive interview.
How do you feel about Robert Berchtold living so close in Logandale, Nevada?
Well, of course, because he's close by, I'm frightened for my own safety and for the safety of my family members. But I'm also frightened because someone like this with a record, a page long like his criminal record is out of prison. What does it take? He was not only convicted for kidnapping, in my case, he was also convicted of rape of a child in Salt Lake City of another little girl in 1986. How many times does something like this have to happen before a person is put in jail so that they can't do this to somebody else? So yes, I'm frightened, but I also think, why aren't we doing something about it? And I am definitely going to be that person, that voice for all these other victims.
Do you know what else he's been charged with?
Well, I know that he was convicted of things to do with deception, drugs, and some kind of stealing. It's all on the record. I can't read everything. I don't understand the jargon, the legal language, which is a problem. That's a big problem. That's why he's probably walking around, because there's so much miscommunication within our legal system. People that are victimized by a criminal, they don't understand what they should do, how to prosecute, who to talk to. And even in my case at the Dixie State College conference on Saturday, I had a stalking injunction that I had thought was in place, but because I didn't understand that I was to have someone in Logandale serve it to him, he actually wasn't served with those papers, whereas I thought it was all a said and done deal. And that was a miscommunication between the police department and the people helping me and myself, just not knowing what I was supposed to do. A huge travesty. Very sad, because that would have held some real weight and had some real teeth that we could have sunk our teeth into this. It was a felony, and because the papers weren't served in time, because I didn't know, it was my fault, and it was miscommunication from the police department as well. This is what happens to victims all the time, and people walk on some kind of a, what do you call it, a technicality.
Jan, how can people learn from your story?
We made mistakes. My parents made mistakes. There were things that should have happened, could have happened, and didn't happen. There were red flags that we missed, warning signs, danger signs that could have been picked up on had we been better educated. We want to tell our story so that we can educate other people as to those danger signs, those warning signs. We want people to read the book Stolen Innocence, the Jan Broberg story, so that they will never have something like this happen to their own children or in their own families. I speak to women's groups all over the country. I speak for many victims, and I also speak for those who can heal. And I want to help in both of those arenas, educate and those who have been victimized to heal.
And that'll do it for today's Local News Now. Thank you for watching KCSG.